Greetings and shalom, everyone. Welcome to another Health Talk with Lisa. I am your clinical practitioner and owner of the Holistic Balance Life Center located here in the DFW area. Well, as I stated before in the previous recording, today's topic we're going to be covering emotional clutter. Yes, and how unprocessed feelings are draining your energy. Now, I believe that this topic will resonate with quite a few people. So, I want to dive deep into the healing and the wholeness and the wisdom of this holistic living, and to explore this topic a little bit more. And so today I want to touch upon this because I know that it's going to resonate with a lot of people, even individuals that probably don't even realize it. So let's look at this emotional clutter. So the question I have for you, have you ever felt exhausted, like for no apparent reason? Like you have been carrying something something heavy upon you, but just can't quite name what that is? Well, that's emotional clutter. Most likely that's what that is. It's those unspoken emotions, those buried memories, and unreleased feelings that take up so much space in our bodies and in our minds. And just like physical clutter that you may have in a room in your home, it builds up and it crowds us in, and slowly it begins to drain your energy. So in this episode, we're going to talk about why our bodies hold on to such emotions that we don't express, and how emotional weight impacts our physical health and our mental clarity, and most importantly, simple holistic ways to begin releasing what you've been carrying for so long. Because when you fail to release these emotional burdens, then it can start wreaking havoc upon your body, which can then lead to diseases. So whether you are washing dishes or sitting in your car or taking a walk, this is your invitation to take a pause, breathe, and then tune in. And let's clear up some space emotionally, mentally, and energetically, so you can move forward, feeling lighter and freer and being more present. I have this quote that I like by Bezel van der Kolk, and it says, "The body keeps the score." Now, the body keeps a score, yes, because we suppress so much, and every day we just hold on to so many pressures and hold on to so much anguish. And even when we say, "Oh, I'm okay," a lot of times we're not okay. And so this is from Dr. Van der Kolk's groundbreaking work on trauma, and it's not just about his book title. It's about a truth that reshaped how we understand emotional pain. And so the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Think about a female that may have been molested or raped. And in the middle of that trauma, her mind zones out and she escapes and goes and allows her mind to go somewhere else. Because, for one, she just cannot believe that this is happening to her. Okay. And some men or boys have experiences as well. And they may zone out because they just cannot believe that this trauma is actually happening to them, or this person is actually doing this to them. And so even though their mind, you know, tends to like cast the very thought out, the subconscious don't forget, and the body certainly does not. So even when we mentally suppress or try to move on from a painful experience, our nervous system, our muscles, and our organs still carry that same imprint. And it shows up in the form of tension, fatigue, inflammation, and oftentimes chronic illness. And you may forget, that's just like if you have an argument with someone, you may forget about the argument. You may even forgive the individual regarding the argument, but you don't forget. You truly don't forget, because the moment you say that, okay, I forgive you, and I'm going to try to forget it, but as soon as something from that experience triggers you or brings about a memory, then all of those feelings come back flooding again. Same thing with the loss. If you experience a loss or if there's a trauma, your body don't forget that. Trauma isn't just in the mind, it is stored physically. And so in his book, he shows how trauma alters the brain and how it keeps the body in a constant state of alert, which ultimately drains the energy, and then it disrupts the healing. So now it's affecting your immune system. And so this now affects the whole person. And we can't always think our way of healing, we can't always think that our way of healing, is like by casting it out, it's going to do the trick. Sometimes we have to feel our way there. We have to find other avenues and other ways to get us to that point of healing. And suppressing it is not, it's not the way, because your body is going to always remember. So here's what we're going to unpack in this conversation on today. First, we're going to explore why unspoken emotions just don't disappear, and they often get stored in the body and show up later as tension, fatigue, and often illness. We're also going to talk about how this emotional weight affects our physical health, and mental clarity, and why you may feel tired, feel foggy in the mind, emotionally stuck. And then when life looks, fine on the outside, you're still wrestling, and so much tension is still going on the inside. And then finally, we're going to walk you through some simple holistic ways to begin releasing, what you've been carrying for far too long, and practices that you can start even today to create a more positive space, better energy, and then peace in your life. So, why unspoken emotions get stored in the body? Well, unexpressed emotions don't just vanish, like I've pretty much stated before. They often just take up residency in the body. And this segment is going to explore that mind and body connection, and how emotional experiences are not just psychological, but they're also physiological. Um, Through the lens of somatic memory, we'll look at how grief and anger and fear and shame can become trapped in our muscles, in our tissues, and even in our nervous system. And and as we look at the science behind it, we can't forget about how chronic stress and dysregulate, how that dysregulates the nervous system. It elevates the cortisol. I spoke about that in the past. It exhausts our body's energy reserves. It keeps us in this constant heightened alertness. And I've said before that it's not good to be in constant stress. Um, and so looking at this and thinking about, okay, well, we need to identify what are the feelings that we're feeling, and when did it start? Um, do I need to speak to someone about it? What is that feeling? Can I pinpoint it? And then we need to look at how and what measures need to be taken so I can begin to release these feelings. So therefore I can start moving towards true healing. Because the truth is, these feelings and these emotions, they have to go somewhere. So these unspoken emotions, such as the grief and the fear and the anger and the guilt and the shame, like I said, they don't just disappear. And so when we suppress them, they, and we start avoiding, then we're just telling ourselves, okay, just kind of get over it. But those feelings just get stored right into our bodies, and so it starts messing with us on a physiological level. And so where the mind and body connection becomes so important, our thoughts and feelings aren't separate from our physical experiences at all. And they're very deeply intertwined. And so this is considered somatic memory, which means that the body remembers, all of the emotional experiences. Case in point, if you think about it, can you recall maybe when you were little, when you were much younger? And I want to look at a good memory. Let's look at a good memory. Maybe you had a good childhood memory, something, a good experience took place. And let's just say it was maybe your mother or your grandmother used to bake something in the kitchen, and it was maybe your favorite dish or maybe your favorite dessert. And she baked every time she baked it. You could always you remember the smell of this particular dessert. This is somatic memory, okay? Because even though grandmother or your mother may not even be here now to fix that particular dessert or that meal, but if you got a whiff of that smell or something very similar, does it not make you remember and take you back to the time of when your mother or your grandmother used to make that dish for you? I can recall when Mrs. Barrett's bread was located on Mockingbird and 75 here in Dallas. And my stepfather used to work there. And my mom, she used to have to pick him up on the weekends. And so we would all get in the car. And before we would go and pick him up, we would always go to Love Field Airport and watch the planes as we wait on him to get off of work. And then we would go and pick him up. But once we got into the area, then we would always smell the bread. Okay. And I love the smell of bread. It smells so good. Of course, as a kid, I did not know that the bread wasn't any good for me, but I'm a kid. So, but that's neither here or there. But I love the smell of fresh baked bread, right? So when they closed down the Mrs. Bird's factory on Mockingbird, for years, each time I would pass through there driving by, I still smelled bread. And I know good and well there was no bread there. So that is considered somatic memory. So those are good memories. But it's the same thing with other memories, those painful memories. Your body don't forget. Okay. And you may not recall every moment of the emotional pain, but your nervous system does. So think about it. Have you ever noticed tightness in your chest when you're anxious, or heaviness in your shoulders when you're feeling overwhelmed? That's not just stress. That's your body holding on to an emotional, some type of emotion. And science actually backs this up. Chronic stress triggers a state of nervous system dysregulation. And so this is where the body stays stuck in this fight or flight. And I've spoken about this in the past. And this is a freeze mode. And so over time, this could lead to this cortisol imbalance. And then when that happens, then you have that can lead to now adrenal fatigue, and then tension, and even inflammation in the body. And inflammation in the body has now become a very um, high factor of or a leading cause of death in our people, because it's so much inflammation in the body. And a lot of times we just focus on high blood pressure, diabetes, things like that, but now inflammation is starting to be almost at the top of that list, and we're not really paying attention to it and noticing it. And so high stress levels can lead to that inflammation, because now the immune system, the lymphatic system, has to now respond. And then the cells have to now release interstitial fluid. And where does that fluid go? It's going to go into the body cavity. It's going to go into the tissues, the muscles. So now you have swelling. That's not good. So just think about it. And I've seen this firsthand. I've seen it. I've worked with many patients and clients, and I've even, seen it, even with myself, being fatigued. I've had to take care of my mom. I've had to deal with it. And even dealing with my mother, having to take care of my mother for so many years, that can be emotionally draining. And I had to go through a reset. My mom just passed away last year. I'm coming up on a year here in June, and I had to go through a reset because I spent so many years caring for her. And so, there are certain things that kind of remind me of, of the things that I had to do for her, and some of the traumas that went along with that. And, I have to go and I have to deal with that. And I know I'm not the only one. My daughters are the same way, because they helped me, they assisted me. So I can speak from experience myself. So so our bodies give us emotional messages. It does, and when we receive those messages, it is very important that we listen and pay attention. Okay. There was one woman that I worked with had persistent back pain that didn't respond well to physical therapy. And so when we explored her emotional landscape, it turned out she was carrying years and years of unresolved grief after losing her sister. And so as we worked holistically with her to process that pain, then her body began to, soften, and and then her symptoms began to, decrease, and, and become fewer and less and less. So a lot of times all you have to do is just really just look at what the root cause of the problem is. Everything doesn't require a pill. You have to get to the root of it. So the issue, the thing is that we have to realize the power of acknowledging what it is that we're feeling. We have to become aware of us, and then aware of our bodies and what our bodies are saying to us. And when emotions are unprocessed, they become what I call emotional clutter. And the body becomes, a storage unit. And when we start to bring those emotions to the surface, even gently, then healing can begin. So, how emotional weight impacts the physical health and mental clarity? Well, now that we've talked about how unprocessed emotions becomes, clutter in the body and gets stored in the body, let's talk about what happens when we carry that emotional weight far too long. Well, the truth is, emotional weight becomes physical weight. And I'm not just talking about in pounds. Now, for some people, that can be in pounds, but not all. Not for everyone does it become actual weight, in pounds and ounces, but rather in pressure and pain and depletion. And so this is how it can show up. It can show up in fatigue that sleep cannot fix. It can show up in brain fog, where you can't focus or remember simple things. Muscle tension in the neck, back, and the jaw, where you might even feel like you having a heart attack. It can show up in chronic pain with no clear medical explanation. Have you ever experienced that where you've gone to the doctor with, just pain, excessive pain, and they've ran every test possible and cannot tell you what's wrong with you, but you got a big bill now. Gone to the hospital and now you have this huge bill, but there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. And that's how it was with myalgia, when it first came out. These women were experiencing this chronic pain, and for a long time, they didn't even make it a diagnosis. They were saying that it was psychological. They were saying that it was a made up group of signs and symptoms. And of course, all along I was thinking, well, something is causing that, and it must be something within, and they just got to get to the root problem of it. And eventually they made it a diagnosis, and then said, okay, it was like an autoimmune, and and of course dealing with inflammation and stuff like that. But if you think about it, wouldn't that chronic pain fall up under this? The very women that may be wrestling with fibromyalgia, perhaps they are carrying a lot of unresolved issues from their past. That's a possibility. A lot of pent up stress, maybe a lot of unforgiveness, a lot of trauma. I'm just naming a few, but just think about it. That could very well be it. If I'm allowed to speak spiritually here, that's a possibility. So maybe they need to deal with this from a spiritual standpoint. Um, so chronic pain, because there's no clear medical explanation as to why they're feeling this pain. And then digestive issues, such as bloating and, IBS, so that irritable bowel syndrome, and poor appetite. So all these are signs that your body is asking for an emotional release. And then there's the mental side. Maybe you're snapping at your kids. Maybe you're snapping at your spouse. Maybe you're snapping at your coworkers, your partners. Maybe you're just crying over something small and then feeling embarrassed. Perhaps, you're just so sensitive, or people are saying, oh, you're just being too sensitive. So, it could be, there could be a number of things. And so if you are being accused of, of some of, of the emotional aspect of this thing, being angry or being too snappy, or, you've experienced now some personality changes, then perhaps you might need to look at this and see, okay, what's going on here? You might need to go ahead and check yourself, because this could be emotional reactivity from holding on too much inside. And so now it's time for you to release. So over time, this can lead to burnout. This could lead to, bad mood swings, even feeling disconnected from yourself. You can start to question your decisions. Your confidence begin to drop. You might even start to procrastinate and numb out because of the mental clutter. It's just too heavy. It's just as heavy as the physical. And so here's something I also see too. People that are people pleasers. Many of us, especially women, we're expected to handle so much. We're expected to handle so much, and we've learned from early on, how to avoid conflict, how to keep the peace. And so, with that being said, we have adjusted so well on how to suppress our own emotions because we just don't want to. We want to make sure everybody is happy. We don't want to have anyone upset with us. We don't want to feel, we don't want people to feel, we don't want to feel inadequate. So we tend to suppress our emotions, and now with that we have now grief and anger and disappointments, and so we store them quietly, thinking we're being strong, and we're not. We're actually hurting ourselves. And strength is isn't silence, because now the body is going to now respond, and it's going to react. Another common example is childhood trauma. Even if you're successful, loving, and high functional today, even unacknowledged pain from your past can still whisper in your body's language. And you may find yourself anxious in certain settings, becoming avoidant in relationships, deeply self critical, even when everything looks fine. And these patterns don't just make you broken, they make you human, because you have unresolved issues. You've suppressed them for so long. But the good news is, once you recognize the emotional weight that you are carrying, then you can begin to let it go. And you don't have to live in survival mode. And in just a moment, I'm going to walk you through some simple, holistic ways to start releasing what's been weighing you down emotionally, mentally, and even physically. So let's get to it. Don't forget, and I've spoken about this before, breathing and grounding exercises. So don't forget about your breathing. Okay, breathing is important. Your lungs need it. You should be breathing, deep breaths all throughout the day. Okay, 10, at least 10. If you can't remember anything else, 10 good deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. So you're taking in good fresh air. Hopefully you're taking in some good fresh air, and you're releasing the toxins from out of your lungs. And you can do that several times a day, more than several times a day, because for one, your cells need the fresh oxygen to bind to the hemoglobin, right? So therefore, your cells can, travel and deliver this to the rest of your organs of your body. Okay, and then grounding. Go outside with your shoes off on some good dirt. Okay, good grass. Go, sit under the tree. Just walk around and just be outside in nature. I know it's been raining for a few days, but the sun was out today. I hope many of you spent some time outside in the sun. I hope you did, because it was beautiful out there. Don't forget about journaling, okay? And maybe even some guided writing. And then safe expression. It's okay to express yourself, and you let it out, express your thoughts and feelings and be honest with yourself in doing so. Movement, and sometimes you may need to cry. Sometimes you just need to just cry it out and just release it. Vocal release. Some people like to sing. Just get it out. Praise it out. Worship it out. Just release it. And then there are some other therapeutic modalities that some people may use. I mean, I'm going to put it out there because, I know more than just, Hebrews, listen to this. So, there are some other therapeutic, techniques that others may have heard about and may be open to trying it. So, EFT tapping, okay? So, this is emotional freedom techniques. And so, this is a holistic healing method that combines elements of the ancient Chinese acupressure and modern psychology, okay? And it's often called psychological acupuncture, but without the needles. So that's just like um, every now and then, if I get a migraine, I may pinch, you know, inside of my between my thumb and my pointer finger here, and I will apply pressure here. I don't need a needle to do that. I can just apply pressure here, and this right here is considered an EFT method because it will now help to relieve the pressure from my head. But before I do that, I'm going to drink some water and make sure that I'm not dehydrated. But that may be, just touching a pressure point or touching a pressure point or touching a pressure point, so that may be something that you might want to try. And then there's another method that some individuals might use, such as Reiki. And it's Reiki, but it's pronounced Reiki, which is a gentle, non-invasive energy healing practice that originated in Japan. And it comes from two Japanese words, Rei meaning universal, and then Ki meaning life energy. So this is where they take the, they rub their hands together because we are energy, right? And then you create your energy, okay? And once you feel your energy here without touching your hands, then you take your energy that you have now, and you should be able to feel your energy here in between your hands, like I can feel my energy here. And then they take this practice here, and then they take it to the part of the body where there may be an issue. If it's an issue of pain, then you take that and you move it to that issue, that place where there is pain. And this is considered Reiki, okay, where you are, utilizing your own universal healing to heal thyself. So this is another type of healing technique, universal life force energy, using your own energy to try to heal your own body. So these are other techniques. Like I said, some people may actually, utilize this, that may be listening to the program. So I'm putting it out there just in case. Oh, and then of course, when you're done, then you want to now bring this back to yourself. Bring your energy back to yourself, okay? And don't leave your energy out there. So you're supposed to bring it back to yourself. And then, of course, there's talk therapy and then nature therapy. And then, of course, you can also utilize, certain daily practices where you can just kind of look at what you have going on and, make a list of these things, itemize these things, and then look at how you may be able to, formulate some practices to maybe lighten your emotional load or just lighten your load, period. Okay. So those are some ways that you can, try to release those things that you're carrying. And of course, I'm going to always say, speak to the Most High, and just, I'm going to always say, pray about, your situation, and speak aloud, speak to the Most High about your situation. If you need to speak to a therapist about your situation, there's nothing wrong with speaking to, and seeking counsel. Nothing wrong with journaling. Those things are also important. Those methods are also important. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm just putting that out there. But there are ways, forgiveness. Here's another thing too, forgiveness. That is so important because a lot of times people are carrying things on their shoulders and carrying burdens and carrying traumas because they just fail to forgive. Yes, the individual or that thing, that person may have hurt you, but you have to forgive too. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to tear your own self down and you're going to continue to feel bad. So sometimes you just need to just forgive, and you will start to feel a whole lot better. I know it worked for me years ago. Years ago, it worked. And so I don't carry or harbor any ill feelings for anyone. It don't do me any good to do it. I just forgive and I keep going, because I put it in the hands of the Most High. Only He can deal with them, and if anyone that tries to wrong me, they will be dealt with. I don't have to do anything to you. And that's just how I look at things. I'm going to always treat people accordingly, and with the most respect and love. And I will hope that, that the same will be returned to me, but it doesn't always happen that way. But I can't walk around with those things, weighing me down either. And so, so I just chose to, have a different outlook when it comes to life and my life. And so, just changing your outlook, that's all, that's pretty much one of the things I can suggest as well. So, in closing, thank you so much, for joining me, for this conversation, this powerful conversation about emotional clutter and how unprocessed feelings are draining your energy. I hope that today's episode helped you to see your emotions matter, and that your body is always speaking to you and not against you. And whether it's fatigue or brain fog that is lingering, and lingering around you, a heaviness that you cannot explain, but there is a way forward, and you don't have to carry that alone. And so, if you're looking for support or resources, or if you want to connect further, I invite you to visit my website at www.balancedcare hyphen holisticlife.com. So that is BALANCEDCARE hyphen AHOLISTICLIFE. So balanced care hyphen a holistic life.com. And there you will find more information about the holistic services that I do offer, blog posts, and upcoming events. And if today's message resonated with you, or if you're planning an event or a conference and would like a speaker, who can bring a heartfelt, holistic insight into emotional wellness or holistic wellness, I'd love to hear from you. You can also reach me directly at a holistic balance life, a holistic balance LC at gmail.com. So that's the email, holistic balanced LC at gmail.com. So until then, remember, healing is not about perfection. It's about making room for peace. So be kind to yourself, stay grounded, and keep cleaning and clearing what no longer serves you. Take care of yourself and each other, and we'll talk soon. Until next time, shalom.